Somewhere between your last heartbeat and whatever comes next, there is a place that Scripture describes in precise, almost clinical detail. Not a metaphor, not a symbol, a real geography with real boundaries, real inhabitants, and real consequences. The ancient writers gave it names: Sheol, Paradisos, the Great Gulf Fixed. And what they describe is not the vague, foggy afterlife of greeting cards and wishful thinking. It is a structured, active, high-stakes environment where every word you ever spoke still vibrates in the air, where your character is permanently set, and where the distance between comfort and torment cannot be crossed by anyone, for any reason, ever. Today, we are going to map it, chapter by chapter, word by word, using the original Hebrew and Greek to take you somewhere no documentary has taken you before. If you have ever wondered what actually happens the moment after you die, stay with us. This journey is for you. There is a moment that every human being has in common. It does not announce itself. It does not negotiate. It arrives between one heartbeat and the next, in the space where the next beat simply does not come. Scientists have measured this threshold, have mapped its electrical signatures, have weighed it on scales. And yet, the moment itself remains untranslatable, because in that first second of silence, something extraordinary occurs. Not an ending, a severance. And the thing that is severed does not fall, it rises. The ancient Hebrews had a word for what you are at the deepest level of your being. Not merely a soul housed inside a body, but something far more specific. They called it Nephesh, the living being, the animated one, the creature whose identity is woven from breath and blood and the particular electricity of a single, irreplaceable consciousness. And for a lifetime, the Nephesh agrees to the terms of its contract. It agrees to see through 2 eyes, to feel through 10 fingers, to know the world only through the narrow aperture of the flesh. But in that first second of silence, the contract expires, and the Nephesh discovers something astonishing. It can still see. The eyes are closed, the body is still, but the sight, the real sight, has never been sharper. The room is visible, the ceiling is visible, and the walls have begun to ripple, turning slowly, impossibly transparent. The writer of Ecclesiastes knew something about endings. He described the moment in surgical terms, the way a man might describe the snapping of a cord holding a lamp above a well. The cord is cut, and the lamp plunges into the water, and the light is swallowed by the dark. But what the writer understood, and what the living have always struggled to comprehend, is that the cord being cut is not a destruction. It is a release. The Greeks had 2 words that pressed against each other in this moment: pneuma, the spirit, the breath of the divine pressed into the clay, and psyche, the soul, the personality, the accumulation of every memory and desire and wound and dream that makes a person irreducibly themselves. In the living, these 2 exist in such intimate proximity that we treat them as one. At the moment of severance, they distinguish themselves, and the room grows cold. Not the cold of winter or the cold of stone, a different cold, a directional cold, moving inward toward a point, as though something warm had been quietly, permanently retracted. Then comes the weightlessness, a sensation with no earthly equivalent, and then, pulling from directly above, a vertical force that is somehow both terrifying and familiar, like being called home by a voice you have always known but never before heard with your ears. They do not have wings. This is the first and perhaps the most disorienting discovery. The carriers arrive, assigned, purposeful, blazing, and they are nothing like the paintings. There are no feathered arches, no gentle faces turned sideways in soft light. The Hebrew word is malak. It does not mean a beautiful figure floating at a bedside. It means an agent, a functionary of divine logistics, a specialized instrument of the will of the sovereign. In Luke's account of the beggar Lazarus, the text is precise. The angels carried him. This was not metaphor, this was transport. The soul encounters them as one might encounter two pillars of organized fire, terrifyingly specific in their purpose, incandescent with intention, and completely uninterested in being admired. There is only the movement, only the acceleration, a speed that does not register as speed because there is no wind, no resistance, no sense of distance being consumed. And yet the bedroom, the body, the familiar world is already gone. What lies between the earth and the place the soul is being taken is not empty. The Apostle Paul would later call its ruler the prince of the power of the air. The Greek term is kosmokratoros, the world rulers of darkness, ancient intelligences who claimed dominion over the atmosphere between the visible and the invisible. The escorted soul passes through this domain as cargo passes through a contested border under military escort. The soul does not stop. The soul is not touched, but the transit is felt, a static, a hiss, the sensation of being watched by things that are very old and very aware and very angry at their own inability to intervene. And then, as though the atmosphere itself has ended, the stars become visible, not as they appear from a lawn on a summer night, generous and close, but receding, fading to sparks. The geography ahead is asserting itself, and it operates under different rules than the one left behind. The entrance does not look like a gate, not in any architectural sense. The sensation comes first, a vibration, a resonance of absolute lockedness, the way a sealed room communicates its own sealedness through the quality of its silence. The psalm speaks of gates of brass, but the brass is not a material. It is a condition, a state of permanent authoritative closure for those who approach without escort. The soul arrives with escort, and then at a boundary that cannot be photographed or mapped or measured from the living side, the angels release their hold. The arms that were held are now free. The path, for the first time, divides. To the left, a direction that carries its own specific gravity. To the right, something that does not yet have a name in any living language. The soul stands at the edge of the fixed chasm. The Greek word is chasma, not merely a gap, but a gaping opening, a geological wound in the spiritual landscape, impassable by its very nature. And for the first and last time in the soul's new existence, it can see both directions at once. Both sides of the gulf are visible. Both conditions are legible. And from the right side, from the place of warmth and ancient welcome, from the territory that carries on its air, something that might be described as color and rest and relief. A name is spoken, not shouted, not announced, spoken, with the particular intimacy of one who has always known it. The name, your name, called home. The right side receives you the way a garden receives rain. Not with fanfare, not with ceremony, with a simple, fundamental rightness, as though the entire architecture of the place has always contained the precise shape of your absence and is now quietly complete. The theologians have tried to name what happens here. The closest the Greek language comes is anapsixis, a recovery of breath, a refreshing. The word appears in the book of Acts when Peter speaks of times of refreshing coming from the presence of the Lord. And the early readers understood it immediately because they had all, at some point, stepped out of a suffocating room into open air and felt their lungs remember what they were made for. This is that sensation, but total, not the lungs, the entire being. Every compressed and burdened layer of the self, every place where the weight of living had settled and calcified, opened, cooled, returned to its original shape, and from somewhere that is not above or below but simply present, a wind moves. It has no meteorological source. No pressure system produced it, no weather pattern will follow it. It simply is, and it has been waiting for you. The place itself confounds the categories. It is not heaven. Scripture is careful to distinguish between the paradise of the intermediate state and the final eternal order that waits on the other side of resurrection and judgment. The word paradisos comes to Greek from Persian, where it described the walled garden of a king, enclosed, cultivated, intentional, set apart from the wilderness beyond its walls. And this is precisely the sensation. Not the limitless expanse of eternity, but something more intimate, a prepared enclosure, a royal waiting room in which the preparation is itself a form of honor. Light fills it, but the source cannot be located. There is no sun, and yet shadows exist, cast not by any star, but by the weight of a presence whose peripheral illumination is itself sufficient to render every object distinct and vivid. The colors here are not colors you have seen before. They are what the colors you knew on earth were always trying to become. And from across the chasm, from the other direction, the locked direction, a sound arrives. It does not belong here. It is a cry, agonized, specific, and it crosses the distance not to torment the ones on this side, but because sound, unlike the souls themselves, has not yet learned to respect the geography. Here is the paradox that Luke records with the precision of a physician. In the account of the rich man in torment, the man speaks of his tongue. He asks for water to cool it, and the problem is not poetic. The body of that man is in a grave. The body has a tongue that is clay and silence, and yet the consciousness that departed the body retained carries still a form that can experience thirst, that has something functioning as a tongue, that recognizes the sensation of heat with enough specificity to request the cooling of a single anatomical point. The Greek word Paul uses elsewhere is oikaterion, a habitation, a dwelling, a spiritual tent that the soul wears between the departure from the physical body and the receipt of the resurrection body at the last day. It is not the final form, but it is a form. It has weight, it has dimension, it has the capacity for sensation and recognition and embrace. And when the soul, in the quiet of the comfort side, reaches out and touches its own arm, its own hand, its own face, what it finds is not absence. What it finds is something woven from the substance of every significant moment it ever lived. It is made somehow of memory. It is made of light. And it is more itself than the body it left behind ever managed to be. The chasm permits a view. This is the terrible architecture of the place, that from the edge of the light, the darkness is visible. Not threatening, not encroaching, fixed, separated by the impassable geography of divine judgment into a distance that is simultaneously inches and infinite. The Greek word is skotos, and Moses, standing in Egypt, understood it without having died. The plague of darkness that fell on Pharaoh's land was a skotos that could be felt, a darkness with texture and weight, a darkness that pushed back against the hand extended into it. The outer darkness of the other side carries this same quality, amplified beyond what any Egyptian morning could have communicated. It is not merely the absence of light, it is the absence of the source of light, the absolute zero of God's withdrawal. A cold that is not temperature but ontology, the state of existing entirely outside the warmth of being known by the one who made you. And across it, in that defined and separate territory of consequence, a face becomes recognizable, familiar, someone from the life just lived, from the years just ended, and they are on the wrong side of the gulf, and neither of you can cross. There is a ledger. You expected to find it in a courtroom, formal and procedural, brought out at the appointed hour. Instead, it is here, all around you, in the air itself. The words you spoke during your lifetime do not vanish at the moment of death. Matthew records the warning precisely. Every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof. The Greek is argon, useless, unproductive, lazy, words deployed without weight, words thrown into the world without consideration of what they would do once released. Here, in the intermediate state, they have not dispersed. They have become vibrations in the atmosphere of the afterplace. Every careless dismissal, every cruelty dressed as humor, every silence that should have been speech, every speech that should have been silence. They move through the air of this place, like long decayed radio signals, still traveling outward from their point of origin. And the soul understands, with a clarity that requires no explanation and permits no revision, that it is the source of every one of them. It made these vibrations, it sent them into the world, and now it must, for the first time, fully own them. Above the intermediate state watching, this is the image that Hebrews 12 presses into the imagination. A great cloud of witnesses. The word is martyrs. Not primarily a martyr, though martyrdom is the image's most dramatic expression, but a legal witness. One who has seen, one whose testimony is admissible, one who stands in a courtroom and says, "I was there, I saw it, I know what happened." And what the departed souls watch from their elevated vantage in the cloud is the race still being run on the earth they left. They watch with the focused attention of those who have completed the course and now understand every gradient and stone of the path in a way that only finishing it could have taught them. They do not interfere, they witness. And then, in the particular silence that falls like a held breath across the entire assembly, something is announced. Not the final judgment that awaits its appointed hour, but a summons, a gathering, a preliminary audience with the center of all things. The call arrives not as a sound, but as a reorientation, the way a compass needle swings to find north without being asked, and every soul in the cloud turns at once toward the same direction. Memory in the living is merciful. It fades, it softens edges, it allows the mind to carry the weight of a lifetime without being crushed by the full, unfiltered mass of every moment simultaneously. This mercy is a feature of the biological architecture, a kindness built into the limitations of the brain. And here, in the intermediate state, that limitation is gone. The Greek word is metanoeo, to change one's mind, to turn the purpose, to see something you previously refused to see. On earth, it was an invitation. Here, for those in the darkness, it is an agony without application. The mind is expanded to its full capacity. Every forgotten transgression is restored. Every secret kindness is illuminated. Every moment where the path divided and the wrong direction was chosen plays with the fidelity of something witnessed yesterday. Not distorted by guilt, not softened by time. Simply true. For those on the comfort side, this expanded memory is a form of completion, finally understanding the full texture of a life that was only ever partially visible from inside it. For those across the chasm, the same expansion is a different thing entirely. The word that describes their condition is not punishment in the sense of something imposed from outside. It is the soul, finally, fully awake to itself. And then, at the edge of this awakening, a figure appears. Not the final judge, the preliminary one, the one appointed to the gate between the life just lived and the account now beginning. The testing is not punitive. This is what the Apostle Paul understood when he wrote to the Corinthians about the bema, the judgment seat, the evaluation platform, the place where the quality of a thing is assessed rather than its existence condemned. The Greek word is dokimazo, the metallurgist's term for what happens when raw ore is placed in a furnace to determine what is genuine within it. Gold does not become gold in the fire. It simply reveals itself as what it always was. And in the fire of divine scrutiny, the soul watches the accumulated work of its earthly life approach the flame. The categories are precise: gold, silver, precious stones, works motivated by genuine love, genuine faith, genuine surrender to the will of the one who assigned the life. These enter the fire and emerge, changed in appearance perhaps, clarified, reduced to their essential truth, but present, but real. And then the other category approaches: wood, hay, stubble. The religious performance done for the approval of the room, the generosity calculated for its social return, the prayers recited without the speaker behind them. These enter the fire, and the fire accepts them completely. And where they were, there is only absence. No condemnation accompanies the absence. Only the quiet, devastating arithmetic of what remains. The soul watches its own life's work enter the flame, and it waits to see what survives. The most disorienting discovery in the intermediate state is not the geography, not the form, not the expanded memory. It is the stillness of the character. On earth, the soul lived in a permanent state of becoming. It was never fully itself because it was always in the process of deciding what itself would be. Every morning carried the possibility of turning. Every moment of clarity was followed by another moment in which the clarity could be acted upon. The mercy of mortality was this: the story was not finished, and then it finished. And Revelation records the aftermath in terms that carry no ambiguity. Let the filthy still be filthy. Let the righteous still be righteous. The Greek word for the filth that remains is ripos. Not a recent stain, but a permanent moral scum. A condition that has been chosen so consistently and so completely that it has become structural. The soul that arrives in darkness does not arrive by accident. It arrives as the fully realized product of every choice it made about what it would love, what it would serve, and what it would refuse to surrender. And in the silence of that realization, the angels bring forward a scroll. Not a metaphor, a record. A living document that has been maintained with perfect fidelity since the first breath of the life now ended. The Sefer. And it is opened. The book is not paper. This is the first surprise. Whatever it is made of, it does not behave as any material the soul encountered in its physical life. It is closer to the substance of the intermediate body itself. Woven from significance, compiled from moments rather than ink. Every entry in it has weight proportional to its actual importance rather than its apparent importance. The cup of cold water given to a child on an unremarkable afternoon occupies more space than the celebrated public donation given for the applause of a congregation. The private grief endured without bitterness fills more pages than the decorated suffering performed for an audience. The Sefer knows the difference because the Sefer was compiled not from the outside, but from the inside, from the actual motivational architecture of every act, the true temperature of every intention. The angels read from it, and what they read is not a verdict, it is a recounting, a census, a precise and loving and sometimes devastating account of what the life actually was, rather than what it appeared to be. And at one particular name, at one specific entry, the entire cloud of witnesses falls silent, not in dread, in recognition, in the particular hush that falls when something is spoken aloud that everyone already knew but had never heard confirmed. Why cannot they cross? This is the question that the living ask with the comfortable distance of those who have not yet arrived at the chasm's edge. And the answer, when the soul stands at the border and looks into its own physics, is not punitive in its structure, it is ontological. The Greek word is sterizo, to fix firmly, to make fast, to anchor something so completely that the anchor itself becomes part of the definition of the thing. The spiritual physics of Sheol operate on the principle that the soul's condition at death represents the final crystallization of every choice it made about its own nature. The chasm is not a wall built by a distant authority to keep the unworthy out. It is the soul's own gravity, made permanent. The soul that chose darkness in increments now has a mass, a weight, a directional pull that is fixed into the geometry of the place. And across the gulf, beginning at first as a rumor of light on the horizon of the soul's expanded perception, a shape is forming. Too large to be a building, too deliberate to be natural. Something approaching from a direction that cannot be named because it lies outside all compass points. A city, descending, still distant, but coming. Time here is not the time you knew. The psalm that Moses wrote in the wilderness contains a line that seemed, from inside a mortal life, to be poetry. 1,000 years in God's sight are like a watch in the night. The Greek makes the distinction explicit with two words that were always present in the New Testament, but rarely felt until now. Chronos, the sequential time of clocks and calendars and aging, the time in which 1 second is always followed by another in an unbroken chain of causality. And Kairos, the appointed time, the time of significance, the moment in which the eternal intersects the sequential and a single second carries the weight of a century. In the intermediate state, Chronos has dissolved. There is no sequence here in the sense the living understand it. Events occur, experiences accumulate, but they do not stand in line. They exist in a kind of simultaneous depth, each one fully present without diminishing the others. 1,000 years of earthly history passing while the soul exists in what feels like an extended, weightless afternoon. And then, cutting through the timeless atmosphere of the intermediate state with the specificity of a single, decisive note. A sound. Not the final trumpet of resurrection, something preliminary. A call to stillness, a summons to rest. The sound moves through every soul in the intermediate state simultaneously, and every soul responds the same way, by stopping, by turning inward, by entering a quality of quiet that has no earthly equivalent. A session of rest has been called, and the waiting, which was never passive, deepens into something ancient and complete. Beneath the altar, they wait. This is the image that John receives in his vision on Patmos. Souls positioned not randomly in the expanse of the intermediate state, but specifically, deliberately, beneath the altar of heaven. The martyrs, those whose earthly lives ended not by the slow negotiation of illness or age, but by the swift and violent verdict of those who hated what they represented. And their question, which John records with the directness of a court transcript, is not a complaint. It is a legal petition addressed to the only authority capable of answering it. How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood? The Greek word they use for the one they address is despotes, not the gentle pastoral father of the prodigal son parable, the absolute master. The sovereign whose ownership of all things is total and whose timing is therefore not subject to appeal, but whose justice is absolute and whose delay is itself a form of mercy toward those still living who have not yet chosen. The answer given is not an explanation. It is a garment, a white robe placed on the shoulders of each waiting soul, and in the moment the fabric settles, if fabric is even the right word for what it is. Every specific memory of every specific wound from the life just ended loses its definition, not forgotten, transformed. The pain does not disappear. It is simply, completely outweighed. The soul discovers it can still speak upward, not in the way the living pray across an invisible distance, through the interference of doubt and distraction, hoping the signal arrives. Here the connection is unmediated. The incense rises directly. The Greek word is ontouxis, a petition but more precisely a meeting, an encounter with a superior in which the inferior is granted access not by merit but by invitation. The souls of the departed pray for the living. They carry the names of those still running the race with a precision and a tenderness that the limitations of their earthly intercession never permitted. They cannot intervene. The geography prevents interference. The living, must run their own legs of the race without the departed stepping onto the track to run it for them. But the incense of their petitions rises continuously, and in the throne room toward which it ascends, it is received. And then, filtering through the expanded awareness of the intermediate state, something changes in the sound of the earth. The groaning that Paul described, the creation travailing in labor, straining toward a delivery that has not yet come, becomes audible to the soul in a way it never was during the years of embodied life. The living cannot hear it clearly. The noise of their own existence drowns it. But here, in the clarity of the afterplace, the sound of the earth longing for its redemption is the most recognizable sound in the universe, because the soul itself once made exactly that sound and never quite knew what it meant until now. The former things are losing their resolution. This is the phrase that seems inadequate until it is experienced, until the soul notices that the memories which carried the sharpest pain have begun to change in quality without changing in content. They are still present, they are still true, but they are losing what might be called their authority. The Greek word is parachomai, to pass away, to move from the center of the scene to the edge of it, to exit the stage without being destroyed. The tears are not erased. They are rendered comprehensible in a way that strips them of their dominion. The losses that defined a life, the relationships that ended in fracture, the doors that closed before the knock was answered, the years that were consumed by things that did not deserve them, all of it remains in the record. But the record is now held by a different hand, read in a different light, and the verdict it produces is not grief, but understanding. And in the midst of this gradual, merciful diminishment of sorrow's sharpness at the edge of perception, in the direction the soul has been turning since it arrived, something becomes visible for the first time with enough clarity to be recognized. Not a light, not a geography, a person, a figure whose quality of presence reorganizes everything in its vicinity, the king of the territory. And the soul, which has traversed the chasm and the geography and the scrutiny and the silence, finds that it is not afraid. And now comes the reconciliation that the earthly mind could never complete. Every suffering that seemed senseless, every prayer that seemed to fall into silence, every righteous life that ended in visible defeat while the unjust prospered visibly and died comfortable. The soul, standing now in the full unobstructed light of the afterplace, receives the why, not as a verbal explanation delivered from above, but as a sudden structural comprehension, the way a complex equation resolves when the missing variable is finally supplied. The Greek word is dikaiosune, not merely justice in the legal sense, but the rightness of God, the quality of divine action that is correct in every dimension simultaneously, correct in ways that require an eternal perspective to perceive. Every injustice on earth was seen, was recorded, was weighted with a precision that no human court ever achieved. The suffering of the righteous was not abandoned. It was held, accumulated, reserved for a recompense that the temporary economy of earthly life was never large enough to contain. And the soul, which wept over its own grave and the graves of others, which endured seasons of confusion and silence and apparent divine indifference, now sees the complete architecture of the story it was part of. And it is just, and it is beautiful. And then it looks back, one final time, at the earth, at a room with cold blue light, at a body that is still, at the faces of those who remain, gathered around a silence that they are only beginning to learn to carry. To you who are still watching, this is the message that crosses the boundary in the only direction it can travel, outward, toward the living. The words belong to Abraham in the parable, but they carry the weight of every soul that has ever stood at the division and looked back at the ones still choosing. They have Moses, they have the prophets, they have the whole long testimony of everything God said and did and promised across the entire arc of human history. Let them hear them And if the hearing seems insufficient, if the distance between the written word and the willing heart seems too vast to cross by text alone, still, even if one rose from the dead, the heart that is determined not to turn will find a reason not to turn. The Greek word is epistrepho, not a theological concept, not a doctrinal position, but a physical metaphor. To turn back, to rotate the body toward the direction from which it came. The living still possess this motion. The opportunity to make it remains open for exactly as long as the breath continues, and the soul, on the other side of the threshold, wearing its robe of light and its expanded understanding and its finally complete self, carries no bitterness toward those who have not yet turned, only urgency, only love. The lens begins to pull back, the afterplace recedes, the hospital room reassembles itself around the frame, the clinical cold returns, the blue light, the stillness, the silence that started everything. The book closes on this side. That is the nature of the document. It has a final page, and when the last breath writes the last entry, the cover comes down with the finality of a stone rolled across a door. But for the soul that has passed through everything this document has tried to describe, the book of life does not close. It continues in a language that has no equivalent in any tongue the living speak, in chapters that no earthly narrative structure can contain. The room you are sitting in right now is real. The breath you are drawing is real. The heartbeat you are not thinking about. The one that is simply happening quietly without your supervision. That is real too, and it will not always happen. The Aramaic word that the earliest Christians used as both a prayer and a greeting carried two meanings simultaneously, and they intended both at once. Maranatha. Our Lord, come. It was the cry of those who understood that everything visible is temporary, that the architecture of the seen world is a scaffolding around something being built that will outlast it entirely, that the most important country is the one you are moving toward and have been moving toward since the first breath organized the clay into a nephesh, and the nephesh opened its eyes and began. The room falls silent. The clinical monitors have nothing left to measure. And somewhere beyond the reach of every instrument ever built, a soul takes its first step, not away from the light, deeper into it. And the singing, which was always there, simply becomes the only sound.